Hello, I'm Susan Dunlop, and welcome to episode 13 of Coffee and Contemplation with Women. Today, I'm really happy to be able to share that we've managed to find our first septuagenarian who's been willing to step up and share her story. Septuagenarian meaning a woman in her in her 70s. Marg is a very youthful elder of our community. And Marg was put forward by her granddaughter Sianna as having a rich life and a story worth sharing. I'm not going to go into terribly much background because we do cut across a few decades of Marg's life and the story will unfold as we go. Marg is joining me from Verrierdale in the Noosa hinterland. This month is the celebration of her birthday. So welcome, Marg, and happy May birthday to you.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really grateful that you've said yes to share your story, seeing as your cheerleader granddaughter is very much behind you being part of the podcast.
Exactly. I'm a bit surprised that you put me forward, but we'll see how we go.
Yeah. You were saying earlier that you didn't feel like you had a story to tell.
I think I've had I'm not going to say had. I hope I've got a lot more years ahead of me yet. I think my life has been fortunate. Like everybody, I've had ups and downs, but more ups, I guess, than downs. I think as you get older, you learn to roll with the punches. And I do think of myself as a survivor, so maybe that helps.
Yeah, okay. Hey, well, how about we slip back 72 years ago and maybe you can share with us your earliest memory.
Okay, my first memory, I was 2.5 at the time. I was in hospital with bronchial pneumonia. And I distinctly remember the nurse bringing me a block of chocolate or a lolly or something, and I thought it was a lovely place to be because they gave you nice things. But later on, I realised I had glimpsed my mother through the window because in those days, of course, mothers weren't allowed to visit young children in hospital.
Oh.
I just remember seeing Mum there that time, and I came home from hospital with not one but 3 imaginary friends called, wait for it, Bupley, Dada and Sawsaw. I have no idea where those names came from. I remember Mum and Dad sort of quizzing me about it and saying, well, who are these people and where did they come from? And I was just saying, they live over there. And they were in my life for quite a while.
Oh, wow.
I used to just chat to them. Yeah, it's weird names, and I really don't know where it all came from. Yes, that's my earliest memory. That bout with bronchial pneumonia was followed up a few months later with what Mum thought was a return of it, but it was actually asthma. And she said to the doctor at the time, don't be ridiculous, only old people get asthma. But of course, once I was a confirmed asthmatic, Mum soon learnt that there were other children who suffered from asthma.
Because you've been a chronic asthma sufferer, haven't you? Or you?
Yeah, it pretty much dominated my childhood years. Like I remember going home from hospital, say at 3:00 in the afternoon, and being back at 10 o'clock at night. So it was interrupted my schooling quite a bit.
Yeah.
But
did you have did they have anything particularly they treated you with at that stage? I know like my brother had it in the 70s, and it was very much about doing swimming was the thing for him to do to relieve it.
Yeah, that sort of came later, and I must say that I really wasn't out of hospital enough to ever do any proper swimming. But what they used to treat it with at that time, when I would go into hospital with a bad attack and I would be really gasping for breath, they would inject me with adrenaline.
Yeah.
And I sometimes think I'm a bit of an adrenaline addict because when I was studying, if I had an assignment that was due, I would always be a last minute Nelly rush, you know, and I did wonder whether I needed that adrenaline rush to kick in because I'd
so
become
used to it.
addicted as a child.
Oh, gosh, how much adrenaline are you allowed to take? Is there any restrictions on how often you can have it?
I don't know. I've got a number in my head of 9, and I thought it was minims, but that could have just been the child hearing what they were saying. So what they would do, they'd inject it into my arm a little bit at a time, and I could feel my breathing easing. It was, you know, on a really bad attack, I'd have an oxygen mask on to get my breathing.
Yeah.
So, you know, I guess I was pretty sick as a child, but I don't remember my childhood as being, I don't feel like I missed out on too much, if that makes sense. What ended up giving me a normal life, I guess, was when I was 12. So I lived in Gladstone, which is on the coast.
Yep.
And so quite a moist climate. So I went to Barcaldine, which is a dry climate in the west. I boarded in the convent there for 2.5 years. And that seemed to help with a lot of people. I remember there was another girl boarding there at the same time, and she was an asthmatic from Gladstone as well.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I've been to Barcaldine. It's very dry.
Yeah, so change of climate, I think probably combined with puberty, because they do say they go in 7-year increments.
Oh, do they? Okay. Yeah.
So, and then I was free of asthma all through high school. And then when Jenny was a baby, I had a bad attack, which may or may not have been to do with hormones. I don't know.
No.
And then a couple more through then. I had a really bad attack when I was in my early 30s, so much so that I stopped breathing. We're actually here camping we just bought the block. We're camping here in the bush, and I had a bad attack. And Digger was driving me into hospital, and I stopped breathing on the way. And he said he drove one-handed, punching me with his left hand, trying to do a bit of CPR on my chest as we drove.
Oh, God.
I came to. They again injected me with adrenaline that time into my neck. And I remember thinking, you know, I sort of, as I came to, I thought, oh, there's air there. I can breathe now if I want to. But if I don't breathe, it won't matter either. So it was, I guess it was a conscious decision to take that breath.
Yeah. Which maybe is about your outlook on life, that, you know, that you've experienced all of that, but you've actually chosen to just keep on going and doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I guess I have. I haven't told that story for so long.
No. Yeah. Hey, you were mentioning when you were studying, what were you studying? Like, what did you want to be when you grew up, and is that what you became?
No. When I was a young girl, I suppose, you know, when you're 8 or 9, like a lot of young girls, I was going to be a film star.
Oh.
With one of my friends, we were going to be very famous. But then because I was spending so much time in hospital, I decided that the best thing I could be would be a doctor, but not a practicing doctor. I wanted to go into research and find a cure for asthma.
Okay.
But of course, I went on and became a teacher.
Do you think the influence of the amount of, like, as you were saying earlier, like, you know, about reading with your mum, and would that have spiked any sort of desire to be a teacher? What were you a teacher in?
Primary school.
Yeah.
The little ones.
Yeah. Ah, okay.
Well, up as far as year 6, I taught. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that influenced you at all, though, having that sort of, you know, bedtime reading? And
I think I've always been an avid reader.
Okay.
I can actually remember the first children's novel I finished reading, and what a letdown it was that it was finished, because I wanted to keep going.
What book was that? What book was that?
It was an Enid Blyton book. It was The Adventures of a Wishing Chair.
Oh, just talking to my daughter about that this morning. We were talking about that and the enchanted wood and
I read all of her
Magic
books.
Far Away. Yeah.
Magic. And then she had the famous 5 and the secret 7, I think they were.
Yeah. We were talking about that this week.
I read all those, but, I was at home a lot or in hospital a lot, so I read a lot. And I don't know whether I always feel like I fell into teaching, to be honest. I rested on my laurels a bit all the way through high school. But, my, what is now called Year 12, but it was senior back then, my senior results were pretty good. And that following year, the intake into Teachers College, they had higher results, students with higher results than they'd had previously, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I really had rested on my laurels quite a bit through high school. And then I was offered a teacher's scholarship, which is what we were given in those days. So it was either that or I was going to go into to work for the government in an office somewhere, which I probably would have hated, I think. But anyway, I was offered, actually, I've just remembered a guidance officer came to school at one stage. And Mum was with me, I remember at the time. And I remember he smoked. He was a chain smoker. He smoked the whole time he was talking to us. But I must have wanted to be a teacher back then even. So this would have been year 11 or year 12. And I said I wanted to be a teacher. And he looked at me and he said, your wrists aren't strong enough to be a teacher.
Oh.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
Was that to do with the whip?
I don't know. Oh, we didn't whip anybody. I don't know. I think that was probably just a man being a man.
What has a wrist got to do with it? Goodness me.
We don't know. Mum and I never ever worked it out. We couldn't work out. You don't need a lot of strength in your wrist to write on the blackboard. I don't know. Or maybe he thought, I don't know.
No. Well, no, I mean, because you would have been a teacher of, say, my age group, wouldn't you? So I'm 54, so I'm 20 years younger. Yeah, so, I mean, I know through our era it was definitely still in place that, in the Catholic system anyway, that, nuns would give you a good old belting with the wire-edged ruler, or, the boys were all going up and getting the, what's it called, the strap or the, it wasn't a whip,
the strap they had hanging. The strap they had hanging from their habit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, were vicious buggers they were, I tell you.
Well, I went to a Catholic school, but I was never belted.
Oh, well, I obviously was not either, because I must have been good. But let's not go there. Okay.
But they used to. Remember one nun, we'd be standing up on these forms, reciting tables. And if she thought we weren't saying them loudly enough, she'd stop or she'd get really angry. And we'd all have to put our hands out and get whacked with the ruler.
Yeah. I said now one had the metal strip. She actually would turn the ruler over.
Really?
So the metal strip was there so she could get you in the, the crease of your elbow, whatever that's called, the inside of your elbow. She'd actually hit you there so that she could actually get you with the metal. I mean, that was so not normal that in year 4 that you were getting that type of treatment.
But I remember Mum saying once she heard that their lives were actually harder than we were led to believe.
Oh, can imagine.
And they, for example, if somebody came to the door, and I suppose this may have been around the time of the Depression or something, somebody who was hungry came to their door needing a meal, that meant that somebody went without. They would give the food away, things like that. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't a good way to teach, and I'm quite sure a lot of people have ongoing issues from the way they were taught.
It would be interesting to talk to one of them one day, but I think they're all long gone.
It would be.
Yeah, see what that was all about for them too. So. Just in terms, you mentioned Digger earlier, and I know that was your first husband. And I thought maybe shall we cover, you said to me once when I first met you that you were involved with the Relay for Life, and it was the first time you ever actually spoke about your loss of Digger and all that. So I was wondering whether, this is about women sharing their stories, whether you would be able to share that with us just in your way today.
Yeah, okay. Sometimes I still don't believe it's happened because we were only in our 40s. Digger was 46 when he died. And we're at the stage where the children were grown. We were thinking that the next year we would start to do some real travel. And he was a very healthy, strong man. And he developed pain in his stomach one day. And it sort of went away and then it came back. So he went to the doctor and, one thing followed on from another, and they did a colonoscopy and he had colon cancer. However, by the time he was diagnosed, it was already in his liver. So okay. He'd had no symptoms up until then, because I believe bowel cancer is curable if it's got early enough. But by the time we knew about it, it was too advanced. It was in other parts of his body. I'm very grateful that the other parts of his body that it developed in, they were able to kill. So he never ever experienced a lot of pain. It was more discomfort than pain. Yeah. But we thought we could beat it. He thought he could beat it. I thought he could beat it. I must admit, I felt like I'd failed when he died. I thought I should have been able to keep him alive. He did all the right things when he was diagnosed. He used to meditate and he was very positive. But we had 7 months. I think of it as my nightmare time, because you're living through a nightmare. It's not something that happens to you. It happens to other people. We were lucky enough to have 25 years. I noticed one of your questions was, did I regret anything? Don't know if it's a regret, but I do sometimes wish that I'd hung on to our time together a bit tighter, if that makes sense. Because you almost take life for granted when you're that age.
Just being busy around the kids were doing what they were, and then you just move it on. And
But I also think that about my children. I wish I'd hung on to their childhood a bit tighter than I did. Yeah. Because you're right, you're busy going from one day to the next, or living your life, basically. So
and in losing Digger, did that then become something that was became part of you, that you would actually hold tighter to anyone else that you had in your life or were to meet?
Yes, you're probably right. I was very lucky. I already had my 2 grandchildren at the time. Ty was 3. Sianna was only 9 months old when Digger died.
Okay.
I was very, very lucky that I had them already, and my 2 children were grown. But I think I've held on to them a bit tighter, and if I could skip ahead a bit, one of your questions was, what's your favourite quote?
Oh, yes. Yeah, go with the flow. Whatever comes up for you, just keep talking.
The one that's always stuck with me is, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift. That's why it's called the present.
Yeah.
So I've sort of, that's always been there for me, and it's taught me to hold on to each day a little bit harder, I think.
Okay. So, Marg, where has your life gone since losing Digger?
My initial thought was to laugh when you said losing Digger, because when initially you don't know who you are or how you should be. And I remember one day somebody saying to me, "Oh, since you lost Digger," and I snapped at them and said, "I didn't lose him. I'm not that careless."
Oh, God bless. That's lovely.
I think part of it is because you have so many cliches.
Yeah.
Like, oh, life goes on and all the rest of it. Well, the mere fact that you're sitting in the funeral home having the ceremony for your husband's funeral while the traffic's still going by outside is very much a fact that life goes on.
Yeah.
And it does go on just without him. One of my cousins said to me, as her husband had died when she was pregnant with her second child, actually, and she said to me, "It does get better, but it will never go away."
Okay.
And that's so true. It doesn't. It's always there. As I think I said to you earlier, I still don't believe sometimes that it's happened. That doesn't happen to people like me. I don't know. I don't know why we think that we should be immune from what other people experience, but I think a lot of us do. So, I don't know, that first year was just, I don't know, it was just one day after the other. I remember I went back to teaching after about 6 weeks, and which I was grateful for, because some days that was all that got me out of bed. I'd be sitting up in bed just staring at the wall, and I kept a diary back then. Excuse me, and I read it a couple of months ago, and it just took me right back to how terrible those days were. I actually burnt it so that I can't read it again, because it wasn't a good thing to do. I'd forgotten just how low you can become emotionally. So I guess that first year, actually I remember, it wasn't a good year, but I remember at the end of the year sitting in the church. I taught in a Catholic school, so sitting at the end of the year ceremony we were having, and I just looked along the row where the children in my class were. I just looked along at them and I thought, it hasn't all been bad. That for some reason the children, the class I had that year, were a real dream. They made life a bit easier.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So and then just move. No, you gradually start, I think, to live your life. I did a lot of reading about grief. One of the books talked about the stages of grief, and the point that I took on board was, you don't go for stage 1, then stage 2, then stage 3, right through to however many stages. You can get up to stage 4 and then be back at stage 1 the next day. And I remember thinking at the time, sometimes I'd be, life would be good and I'd be dealing with my life, and then suddenly it would feel like the way it felt to me was like I had a bucket of sadness thrown over me. Oh. So I'd go from feeling normal, to feeling just sad. And so I don't know, I think you just learn to do each day at a time. But Digger had a very good friend, very close friend. They'd been friends since school. And my first date with Digger was to Tony's 21st birthday.
Oh, okay.
So I'd known Tony as long as I knew Digger. And he was just always there, like a big brother. And he's a big man. Anytime he was coming to visit, I would say to Digger, I'll get my bear hug because Tony is a hugger. And, after about 12 months or a bit longer after Digger died, I went to Gladstone for a niece's 21st, and Tony had been invited to that. And we sat and talked for quite a while. And I was back up in Gladstone again a couple of weeks later, and I saw him again. And things started to change between us. If somebody had said to me that I would end up being with Tony, I would have laughed at them, because he was only ever my husband's best friend. Like a big brother who would come to visit, and he'd come and we'd have dinner and we'd sit and talk for a while, but I'd always go to bed or read a book or something, and they would just spend time together. So we were both very surprised by this. There was a book we both read many years ago, just a novel, but one of the phrases in it was, "Who would have thunk it?" And so we used to look at each other and say, "Who would have thunk it?"
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah. So anyway, we were very lucky. Our children all knew each other, so that was. I think when you're moving into another relationship, I think it helps if your children are comfortable with it all, and they were.
How long have you been with Tony for now?
We've been married for 21 years now.
Oh, okay.
So it's 25 years since Digger died, and Tony and I have been married 21 years. So when we've decided, when we're married 25 years, we're going to count as 50. Because I had 20 with Digger, and I'll have 25 with Tony.
That's good. So you get what's the 25th? Sorry, the 50th wedding anniversary get you? Is that silver or something?
Gold, which is far better than silver.
Yeah, for goodness sake, you need to go for the gold. Hey, Marg, we're going to finish up soon, and it's been absolutely lovely. I know we sort of crossed a little bit here and there, and I don't know whether people will realise the type of sound effects we just had in the background that we both just tried to avoid happening. Crazy day with all these people at home and hanging around our spaces.
Exactly.
You've told me what your favourite quote was, and that was fabulous. Thank you so much. What could you tell me would be your favourite song or genre or band, and is there a fondest memory attached to it?
It's got to be, my favourite song is Imagine, John Lennon.
Oh, yes.
I remember being absolutely devastated when he was dead. Absolutely. I just thought it was so wrong that the world had been robbed of such a talent so easily. So yes, Imagine, because it just appeals to me, and I like what it's saying, and also, I don't know, it takes me back to when I was younger, I guess, as well.
Yeah. It is a beautiful
like
song.
It's a glorious song, but I like a lot of his music. I like a lot of the Don McLean song too, because that's sort of the soundtrack to the early years of our marriage. And
yes.
When the children were little, and
yeah.
So I guess, music. It's more about music that takes us back. I do have a favourite song with Tony, and that's Unchained Melody. We both like that one.
Yes, that's actually one of Tom's of my favourite too.
Yeah, and Tony's, getting my husband's mixed up now. My Digger and I had a favourite song. It was by an English band called Lindisfarne. And it just, the lyrics used to go, sitting by the fire globe, waiting for my girl to show, feeling the harmony grow. And we just used to was just our song. It appealed to
Oh,
both of us.
well, thank you for sharing
Yeah.
those. I do love having the songs shared because to me, life's about having a theme song to all the different stages of your life, and I often think in terms of the songs that were played when things were happening, and whether it was good or
Yeah.
bad, or it gives you a memory of someone that just makes you smile, or just goes
Yeah.
into that quiet moment. And I think it's music's a big part of life, I think. So
It is.
yeah.
It is. A lot. I actually also like the 80s music because they were my daughter's teenage years.
Oh yes.
So
Yeah.
it's playing a lot of that, and it just reminds me of those years too. So
In the
yeah.
days when we all actually got to watch Countdown and see what the bands look like compared to
Yes.
now, when
Yeah.
all the bands are tucked away inside iTunes and Spotify, so you don't actually get to see them on the stage anymore. I used to love watching them, so see them on the stage.
I remember seeing Queen, and I could be wrong, but I believe this was the actual first video clip when they did Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh wow!
And I just fell in love with that song and the way it was done and the absolute talent of those people. I just
yeah. Did you see the movie recently?
Certainly did.
Yeah. What did you think?
I loved it. I thought it was done very well. I thought it just handled all the aspects of his life very well.
Mm.
Um,
It made me actually learn a lot about him that I had no idea that there was the depth.
yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. Wished I was at some of those concerts. It would have been pretty amazing. So,
God, wouldn't it have been amazing?
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Marg, thank you so much for sharing and for coming. I know you sort of did it with a little bit of hesitation because it is a big thing to be asked to come and share your story and be recorded. And yeah, it's valuable. You shared some really lovely messages, and I know as I was listening to you, I could picture other people would be picking up that it resonated a lot with their lives as well. So you don't realise how valuable that is. And yeah, I just I wish you a very happy 74th year, and you're not very far off the gold anniversary. So keep on chipping away towards that. But yeah, so thank you so much, and if you can come back on again in the future, if you want to, you're more than welcome to. And yeah, enjoy your day.
Okay, thank you, Sue.